Hey guys, subscribe for daily knife content. And if you're shopping for knives and gear, make sure you check out the description of the video you're watching right now for links to some great online retailers. There's also individual links for knives that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got a very interesting knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Vero Engineering Synapse Gen 2. What's the difference between Gen 1 and Gen 2? I'm actually going to refer you guys to the Vero Engineering website where you can read about any upgrades, changes, things like that. There's actually quite a bit of useful information, and I enjoy the way that he's got his website laid out. This is a knife that is not immediately available. If you are watching this video hoping to get information on how to get your hands on one, number one, go to the website, sign up for any and all email notifications that you can. Number two, follow Vero Engineering on Instagram. That's it. That's what you have to do. Thank you so much to Zeke for sending this in for review, one of my very generous patrons, and also donating it to the channel. That was incredibly generous of you. If you're wondering what I'm going to do with this knife, actually Zeke suggested that I give it away as part of my 50,000 subscriber giveaway. So this will be given away, along with many other items, to one lucky winner when I hit 50,000 subscribers. So if you're not subscribed, subscribe, because if you're watching this video right now, you have a chance to win. You'll just want to be notified when that day comes. Anyways, this is a really cool knife. I'm a big fan of the aesthetic, and you know, the nature of this is it's difficult to get, right? So I was attracted to it by default, for sure. There's a lot of things that are, you know, kind of sync up with what I find attractive. Thanks so much to my generous patrons who are supporting me right now. You can find a link for my Patreon down in the description. And please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. All right, let's go ahead and get a measurement of this guy. The Vero Synapse Gen 2 coming in surprisingly at only 7 1/4. This knife is one of those knives that has a much larger presence. We're looking at para 3 size in terms of overall length. Blade length, overall blade length coming in at 3 1/8, and your cutting edge is coming in at about 2.8 inches. That is very surprising. I just not measured it this whole time. Let's do some size comparisons. First off, I know there's people who want to see these side by side. I just happen to have a Synapse XL here. So here you go. For anybody wondering, what's the difference between these two? The XL is a pretty big boy, and I will go ahead and measure the XL. Oh my goodness. Yeah, this guy is pushing, it's like 8.85 inches overall with a 3.8 inch blade, something like that. This guy will get its own review, but there you go. There's the size comparison pivot to pivot. So now you guys kind of have an idea of what those two look like side to side. How about up against the Ontario Rat Model 1 and its little brother, the Ontario Rat Model 2? You can see here it's not that far off from the Rat 2. Not really. It's just got a larger, you know, it's got a larger presence. It's kind of a foggy way of describing that. How about up against the Spyderco PM2 and Para 3? Like I said, this is basically a Para 3 sized knife. We are at a slight angle here, so if the Para 3 is looking a little larger, that's why. But they are, trust me, exactly the same length. Last but not least, the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue, and its little brother, the Mini Griptilian. I'll point this out. In hand, when I say this knife has a bigger presence, what I mean is it doesn't really feel that much smaller than the Ritter Hogue. It just feels thinner and more precision. I don't know what it is, but you can see here, it is definitely shorter than the Ritter Hogue. I mean, if we go butt to butt, look at that. It's a pretty dramatic difference, right? But yeah, in hand, it really doesn't feel that much smaller than a full-size Griptilian. Let's go ahead and do carry profile. So, thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. Para 3 coming in basically exactly the same thickness. Not really a whole lot of difference there. Carry profile. This is a great one here for this knife. Up against the PM2 and Para 3, you can see, by the way, I'm sorry that the knife is literally exactly the same color as the background. There are other colors for this knife. You go look on the website, you can get it in orange and OD and natural and this gray, right? There's a couple of different finishes for the blade. A few different finishes, actually. So this is just the gray, or maybe it's the black natural micarta. It looks gray. But anyways, yeah. Length, actually a little bit shorter than the Para 3 and definitely shorter than the PM2. Nowhere near as tall because of this very unobtrusive and well-designed flipper tab. Big fan of that. What are we looking at for materials? The blade is a hand-rubbed satin finished M390 blade that looks beautiful. We are looking at beautifully machined titanium bolsters, and micarta. We're also looking at ceramic bearings. These are manufactured by Bestech, and I've seen a lot that's come out of Bestech, and it's all pretty impressive. They're a good OEM. This is definitely one of, if not the most magnificent things to ever, like, I did not know that Bestech was capable of this. Legitimately, I thought this was a Riot. I did not know who the OEM was, and I was like, that's gotta be Riot. That's gotta be. This is crazy. So it's Bestech doing the work for Vero Engineering. His design, though, for sure. So do with that information what you will. Let's go ahead and do a hardware check on this guy. I'm going to get out my tools. I grabbed the wrong tool. Here we go. As per usual, my tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the description. I believe this bad boy is T8 across the board. Let's take a look here. T8 on the pivot, T8 on the lock bar insert screw, T8 on the overlay or scale screw, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, it's T8, T8, T8. Fantastic. And then we must have a hidden screw underneath here. I've not taken this guy apart, only made slight adjustments to it. I'm going to guess there's a hidden screw under there, which I'm actually coming to prefer. Right? We don't have to worry about recessed screws with the pocket clip if the screw holding it in place is hidden completely anyways. We'll talk about that here in a sec. So yeah, this is pretty cool. It's a titanium bolster lock. So, I mean, you can see here how this works, right? It's kind of like a semi-liner lock, semi-frame lock that is the bolster, you know, it's part of the frame, right? It's not like its own piece. And then here's the part that locks it, a lot like a titanium frame lock. So that's what I'm going to call it, whatever. Let's see here. Have we done everything? We have not done weight. Let's go ahead and measure the blade stock thickness on this guy. I cannot remember what the Axon was. If you're wondering, have you reviewed the Axon? You should use the Axon. You should review the Axon. I did review the Axon. You can check that out if you'd like. I'm going to guess this is about the same. Yeah, between 135 and 140 thousandths, because my calipers are not the most trustworthy things in the world, but they'll do just fine. There is no milling on the inside of this knife. Normally I get my flashlight out, but you guys can see that. Titanium, micarta, titanium, right? Reasonable thickness and reasonable size. Sorry, the scale is doing its own thing this morning. Here we go. And the weight is coming in at a totally reasonable 3.49 ounces. That's half an ounce away from what I consider to be ultra lightweight. I don't really care too much about ratios. Or too much about weight. I'll carry a knife up to about 6.5 ounces, as many of you know. I care more about the profile, and this has an excellent profile. So it's pretty good. Use your, however that fits into your life or whatever your preferences are, right? You can use those to judge that information. Okay, so this is very beautiful. It has very, very straight lines, and I will admit that the hand rub satin finish is very beautiful. I do prefer a hand rub satin finish, and I mean that. Hand rubbed. That means that takes more time than a belt, like a machine belt satin finish. It takes more human interaction. It costs more money to do that. This is the type of knife that has a lot of very precision machining. It's not like you can, just, throw something together and it's the same, right? Just because it's micarta and titanium and M390 and you can get those materials on a less expensive knife does not mean that this knife should factually cost less. If that's what you reduce your value system to, that's fine, but you're missing out on a lot of really interesting quality, right? These things are going to cost more money. How much more? I don't know. I can only give you guys my gut instinct on this, but what I will say is, wow, this knife takes a beautiful modern form. It undoubtedly takes more work than some slapped together Tucson, right? I know, you guys really want me to review Tucson. Sorry, they're just not for me. They feel a little bit clunky. Lots of different designs just feel a little clunky to me. This feels a lot more solid. The action is great. You can see here, you have to I turned it sideways there. Don't worry, this is linoleum. I turned it sideways there because I want to make sure that my, what's contacting my finger is the sharpening choil. There's no double clutch, right? There is a chance if you don't hit that spot exactly right, it could come down right here on the skin, but it does do, it's just fine. It is nearly fall shut, very, very close. This is obviously fairly new. In some situations, like I said, I made a little bit of adjustment, which I'm going to talk about here in a sec, but we are talking about virtually fall shutness. And, to be honest with you guys, I don't actually like totally fall shut knives. I want it to be a little more controlled, especially with a knife like this that is a frame lock style knife with no flipper tab to catch your finger. I'm actually preferring that the action be a little bit tight so that it doesn't come down on my finger. As far as consistency inside the pivot, oh yes, it's very smooth. It's incredibly smooth. Nobody should worry about that. I love the flipper tab. It's very easy to engage. This is a sort of dedicated light switch flipper tab, and it is very satisfying, right? They've also got nice cutouts here, and there is room right here. There's actually, this is cut a little bit lower than this side, and that's just great. This area is nicely knocked down, so it's very comfortable to engage the flipper tab and then disengage the lock bar over and over and over again. The other thing that I just love is this little rectangle on the other side that, it's a gunk trap. Yeah, what? Then clean it out. You wipe your knife off anyway. Clean it out. It always cracks me up. People get hung up on the whole gunk trap thing. You clean it out, right? I love that I can get my finger in there and do the reverse flick, and I love that they could have left this like super raw and sharp, and they didn't. You can see there. It's so nicely knocked down. That's just really satisfying. That's just a cool idea, right? We've got a bajillion blades with holes in them, and that's fine. They look fine, but I kind of like that this side is, can you imagine a rectangle that's like you can see all the way through? Okay, but it kind of would take away from the aesthetic here, the presentation. This is beautiful, right? And this looks good. In fact, there's a big part of me likes this side in some situations better than this side. I think I prefer that solid, just it milled on one side. I just really like that. He was thinking about us fidgety folks, right? Darn it. That was a bad example. It's actually very easy and very comfortable to do that flick. In fact, can I do it with like, oh, my index finger's getting in the way. Can I do it with my index finger? Let's see. There, yeah. I'm a lot more practiced with the middle finger for sure. But yeah, it's wonderful. Very cool. Fit and finish on this guy. Excellent. Look at the transition between the titanium area and the micarta. This just looks great. Very, very clean. The titanium looks awesome. This dark tumbled finish here. I love the show side part of the pivot, the non-adjustment side. It looks great. Anything else would have looked kind of lumpy and weird next to, I mean, this whole knife is just a super fancy tactical gentleman, right? It just screams James Bond to me. Other than the shininess, right? The other side is the adjustment head. It is fixed into place as far as I can tell, or it is captive. That's just from adjusting it. It was no problem. The blade is beautiful. I think the blade is probably, I mean, you know, you're welcome to enjoy whatever part of this knife that you want, but I think the blade is just so clean. It's such a straightforward, nice drop point blade with a flat that carries out about 50%. And then there's a nice swedge carrying out reasonable thickness to the tip, and it is nice and thin behind the edge. Not Opinel thin, right? But it's thin enough. Is this going to get the job done? You bet. There's absolutely nothing in the cutting path, and you can absolutely choke up here because they did knock these areas down. It's not a true choil, but I got to be honest, I feel comfortable here. The only discomfort is from the clip right there. That bill sticks up just a little bit. You're going to feel that, right? But if you're going to be working that hard with it, you're probably going to be wearing gloves. Just a nitpick depending on how you're going to receive that information. Can this be front flipped? Yes, kind of. The jimping does not quite stick out enough for it to be super effective, but you definitely can front flip it. This one is easier than the large one, but you can front flip both of these knives. And I think the more you practice with it, the better. Obviously, I haven't practiced very much, but you can definitely get it if you want to. As usual, I love where he puts his logo. That's great. It lets us enjoy the aesthetic of the knives. This is one of those knives where I don't mind the logo on the pocket clip, and I think that's because the logo looks cool. It's not like this big offensive billboard with like a bunch of axes and warthogs and crap all over. I mean, look, I mean, people are attracted to different things, but sometimes I see logos and I'm like, what is happening? Why is there a medieval circus going on the pocket clip? I want to enjoy what the pocket clip looks like, and I have all these crazy stuff. You know, there's like a clown, and there's like Shania Twain, and there's like a warthog, and she's got a javelin, and it's like, what is happening with your logo? Okay, I'm going off on a rant. I like Vero Engineering's logo, right? I mean, I think it just looks really, really good. Satin finish on the blade looks excellent. There, whenever I'm looking at a hand rub satin finish, I want all the lines going the same way. I don't like to see areas where they like kind of curve down or up. No, straight across. Looks great. Fantastic. Edge, nice and glassy smooth. That is a very sharp edge. I don't have an issue with that. Screws right here, don't mind how they look at all. Don't mind the backspacer. Oh no, there's not a place for a lanyard. I don't care because I don't like lanyards. I know lanyard people are like, dude, but I like lanyards. Sorry, man. There's just, man or lady, there's just not a place for a lanyard on this thing. It just doesn't bother me. I love the clip. I love the carry position. This carries about medium depth. That's all the more that's going to be sticking up out of your pocket. I think because of where this bill is, I would have liked the clip to be maybe shorter and maybe more of a swoop and less of a sort of rectangle. It's not sharp, but this is definitely the thing digging into my hand. It sure does look nice though. See how that line right there accommodates for this area here. It follows that curvature. Super cool. I love that. In this area right here, you can see it's recessed into the micarta. That's really nice. It's very, very nice. This does have a steel lock bar that's doubling as the over treble stop along, honestly, with the micarta overlay. We are centered right here. Now, let's talk about lockup and why I adjusted it. So Zeke messaged me and said, I might have got a dud. Lock bar walks a little bit. He said it's not lock rock, or I can't remember exactly what he said, but my experience here is we're not looking at lock rock. We're not looking at click, 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 click. That's bad. If you have lock rock, send your knife back. Something's wrong with it, right? What we've got here is flex. It's kind of a mushy flex. Previously, when I was up and down, right, I could feel the lock bar kind of don't like that. Now, admittedly, it does not feel like the lock bar wants to disengage. Put some gloves on and I pushed pretty hard on the back of this. No, I think it's there. But it is walking a little bit. There's a little bit of space where the titanium lock bar insert and the tang of the blade don't seem to get along super well. There's a little bit of, I'm hesitant to call it slip. It's walk, right? Mushiness. And I could feel it. Sometimes you can affect how the lock bar engages with the tang by, and this is not a universal fix, okay? If you've got an issue with your knife, no matter what it is, do not adjust it based on what I'm saying. Call the manufacturer first, or whoever makes it, and say, hey, is this an issue? Do you want me to send it in? Because listen, there might be a warranty intact, and if you're just like, oh, I watched this Metal Complex guy and he told me to try this, they're gonna be like, we don't care who he is. You just voided your warranty. So don't do that. But I will say now that this technically belongs to me, well, it does belong to me. What I did is I loosened up the pivot and I attempted to pull one side down, like this side down, and this side up while I screwed the pivot back in, hoping that that would cause the lock bar to engage ever so slightly deeper. The first time I tried it, it didn't work. The second time I tried it, it worked. This seems to have solid lockup now. Absolutely. I tried flipping it hard, and I've tried flipping it kind of light or just sort of setting the blade into place. Both, it's got the same result. It's solid now, but let me say this. I think sometimes, there are some people who will tell you that this is a pass, right? It's okay if it's got a little bit of walk. I don't make knives. I've never made knives, right? In fact, I'm nowhere near a professional when it comes to this stuff. I'm basically just a crazy enthusiast who's handled a lot of knives, and I have my own preferences. What I can say with full confidence is that most of us, as basically the audience that is, you know, the buying audience who's spending this much money on a knife. Listen, my rat has never had any walk. This is a $40 knife-ish, whatever it is now, right? I have beat the absolute garbage and beans out of this thing. That has never had walk. It's never had that mushy kind of, right, where you can feel it moving. In some cases, that might happen with your knife, and it might work itself out, right? Possibly. I don't think it should. That lock should be 100% solid for this type of money. It should be solid no matter what, right? If I buy a $20 knife and there's a little bit of, whoops, darn it. Oh my gosh, hang on a second. I'll finish that rant here in a sec. Sometimes I kick that thing and it unplugs my lights. If I buy a $20 knife and there's a little bit of slip, I'm like, that sucks, but oh well, right? Anything above the $20 mark, it should not have that, right? I consider that a dud. I'm not going to speak for Vero, right? I'm just telling you guys what I think. If it were me, I can understand Zeke's frustration with that. I don't think it doesn't give you a feeling of confidence. Maybe it is totally fine. Maybe it is going to continue to function, and it's going to work just fine. It's not going to it's not going to disengage during use, right? In fact, I'm fairly confident that is the case. But I don't like that subconscious feeling of not being super confident and not being completely and totally satisfied with a pretty darn expensive knife. So, it should be solid. If you have one that's got a little bit of walk, maybe it'll work itself out, maybe it won't. But if I were you, it would frustrate me. Just, that's what I'm going to say. But yeah, the rest of this is pretty freaking great. So issues I have, the pocket clip I think might be a little bit long. The bill causes a bit of discomfort, right? This area up here, if you're going to choke up, you need to be paying attention, especially if you're wearing gloves and you can't really feel everything. It's pretty easy to slip up on the blade, but it is nice that you can choke up behind it. Fit and finish, action, all this, the quality all the way around, this is supreme, right? What do these come in at? On their website, it shows the base version of this. Excuse me, you can get hand rub satin finish, you can get tumbled, or you can get a DLC, probably a tumbled DLC, something like that, right? And then your choice of different handle materials. The least expensive version you can get is micarta and a tumbled finish. They come in at $325. Normally, if someone says like, would you pay $325 for a best deck? Well, I'm going to revert back to every other best deck I've ever handled, and they've made some stuff that I think is totally justifiable in the $200 to $250 department. However, I've never handled anything like this from Best Deck. There's a little more that goes into this, right? I think I would have been truly shocked if this thing came in at, $299. I would have been like, oh my gosh, at $325, I'm like, okay, yeah, I think that's pretty good. That's where I'm at on this, is pretty good. Very impressive, very attractive design. I can understand why there's such a massive appeal to these things, right? He's making as many as he can. Trying to get them out there. They're hard to get right now. We can all hope. It sounds like these are pretty popular, so I think we can expect more to come in the future. I cannot provide a link for you guys. I'm sorry. You'll have to go to the website and his Instagram. That's your best bet. But do not go to the secondary market unless you want to pay way too much money. That's not a good idea. Just wait. But yeah, I think this is pretty good. I really hope that not all of them have that walk. Considering this one was able to be fixed, right? I just kind of pushed on it. I think, that's maybe how it was intended. But yeah, overall, I like this knife. If I was not able to fix that walk with a W, it's not a clicky rock, right? It's just a little flex, right? If I was unable to fix that, I think I would have been a little bit bummed out. But no, this is pretty good. This is functioning the way that it's supposed to right now, and I'm really happy with it. So yeah, this is a recommendable knife, even though you can't really get it right now. I know that makes some people mad, but guys, I'm not just going to push knives that you can buy on this channel. Listen, I provide affiliate links. That means if I'm constantly pushing knives that you can get all the time, and I've got affiliate links for every single one, it starts to kind of look, no, that's not really what I'm about. That's great, I benefit from that, but I want to look at stuff that I think is interesting and give people kind of a window to it, because in the future, it may become available. Just because it isn't available right now does not mean doing a video on it is not justified. I like to get excited about stuff that I want to get excited about. I don't want to be, forcing a review on something just because it's available and popular. No, I want to give honest thoughts on things that I honestly think are cool. And that's the case here. Thank you very much, Zeke, once again, for letting me take a look at this knife and sending it in for review. Very, very cool of Zeke. If you see him down in the comment section, give him a thumbs up. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.